Okay, watch this. I cannot lift this with one arm, like at all. Not happening. But I can lower it with one arm, no problem. Totally controlled. So why is that? Why am I stronger lowering a weight than I am lifting it? And does that mean that lowering part of the reps, the part that everyone calls the negative, is actually the part that's building your muscle? Well, let's figure that out. So for anyone that doesn't want to watch all the way till the end for the answer, here's the short version. So during the lowering phase of the lift, which is called the eccentric contraction, your muscles generally can produce more force eccentrically while using less energy to do it. That part is definitely real. But, and here's the part that most people skip, that doesn't automatically mean that eccentric reps build more muscle. When researchers actually compare eccentric only training to concentric only training, the difference in muscle growth is a lot smaller than the internet make it sound. There was a systematic review in 2025 that found pretty similar hypertrophy between the two in healthy adults across most of the studies they looked at. Well, you're wondering, so if that's the quick answer, why does it feel so obvious that the harder direction should build more muscle? Honestly, the reason you're stronger on the way down is the most interesting part of this whole video. So let's get into that part. Okay, so some quick definitions because I want us to be on the same page before this gets complicated. Curling the way up, that is concentric contraction. The muscle is shortening. Now lowering the way back down, that is eccentric contraction. The muscle is lengthening. Same idea shows up everywhere once you start looking for it. The push-up, pushing away from the floor, is concentric contraction. Lowering down is the eccentric part. Of the squat, standing up is the concentric and descending is the eccentric. Let's say a calf raise, pull it up, same patterns everywhere. One thing I want to make clear though, because I used to think this myself, the eccentric phase is not your muscle relaxing. It is still actively working the entire time. It's just working while getting longer instead of shorter. If it's actually relaxed, you wouldn't lower the weight, you just drop it. Which arms, please don't do that. So back to the original question. Why can't I control the weight all the way down when I straight up could not lift it on the way up? There's basically three reasons, and I'll keep this as not boring as I can. First, the way your muscle produces force is just different when it's being pulled apart versus when it's actively shortening. At a really basic level, the structures inside the muscle that generate the force resist being stretched, and that resistance shows up as extra strength. Now, I'm not gonna drag you through the whole cross-bridge theory, I promise. Well, second, there are basically these passive structures in the muscle. There's this protein called titin that researchers think adds extra resistance as the muscle lengthens under load. There's one of the leading explanations for why eccentric contraction can produce so much more force while costing so little energy. Think of it kind of like this. Hold a band loose, barely any resistance. Now stretch it. Resistance goes way up. Obviously, a muscle is way more complicated than a rubber band, but that's the basic idea. Active and passive structures both pitch in to resist the lengthening. And third is the energy cost. Eccentric contractions can hit high force numbers for relatively cheap, metabolically speaking. Lower cost, higher output. So basically, my muscles are stronger and more efficient on the way down, which would be great, except gravity still expects me to bring the thing back up. Here's where we get into the actual myth. You'll hear this everywhere. The eccentric produces more force, so it must be doing most of the muscle building. Sounds logical, right? More force, more growth. Except, more force capacity doesn't automatically translate into more muscle growth. Those are related, but they're not the same thing. That systematic review I mentioned earlier, comparing eccentric-only training to concentric-only training, found broadly similar overall hypertrophy. Now, some specific analysis lean a bit towards the eccentric in certain conditions, but there's nothing in research that says the concentric phase is basically pointless. That's just not what the data shows. And honestly, part of the reason this is such a messy question to answer is that comparing these two types of training is genuinely hard to do fairly. Researchers have to decide, are we matching the load? Are the number of reps, the total work done, the effort, the training duration? Because if the eccentric group gets to use way more weight, which remember, they physically can, then you're not just comparing lifting versus lowering anymore. You're comparing two completely different training loads, and that's a totally different experiment. So when someone says eccentric training builds way more muscle, the first question is, compared to what exactly? Here's a takeaway that actually holds up pretty well. You get better at what you practice. Eccentric training makes you especially good at eccentric strength. Concentric training makes you especially good at concentric strength. Both can carry over into general strength gains, sure, but the biggest improvement usually shows up in whatever more you're actually training for. That same 2025 review found eccentric-only training was particularly effective for building maximal eccentric strength specifically, while both training styles produces real useful strength gains overall. Which is genuinely useful, by the way, because if you can't do the concentric part of a movement yet, like a strict pull-up, training the eccentric side is a great way to build towards it. There is one eccentric benefit that you did not ask for, and that's discovering every single staircase in your neighborhood the day after your leg day. Unfamiliar eccentric work, or just a lot of it, tends to cause more muscle damage and more delayed onset soreness. Your body adapts pretty quickly though. Do the same workout again a couple weeks later, and it's usually a lot less brutal. But important myth correction here. Soreness is not proof that you're building more muscle. Muscle damage is related to training stress, sure, but being sore is not the goal. You can build plenty of muscle without limping down your stairs the next day. So don't go suddenly adding a bunch of slow negatives to every set, or maxing out on eccentric overload, or taking on extra negatives after every failed rep. Ease into it. Your future self walking down the stairs will thank you. This is probably the practical question that you actually came here for. Not dropping the weight. Good, obviously. But here's the thing. If a 2-second lowering phase counts as controlled, a 10-second lowering phase is not automatically 5 times better. That's not really how this works. There's actually a study that compared 2-second versus 4-second eccentric phases directly and found similar hypertrophy and similar strength gains either way. And more broadly, the research suggests muscle growth happens across a pretty wide range of rep speeds. It's not this narrow window that everyone thinks it is. And there's a real trade-off with going super slow. It can cost you resistance, cost you total amount of reps, cost you overall training volume, and honestly, it just stops feeling like the actual exercise anymore. So practically, lower the weight under control. Don't let gravity just take over, and use a speed where you can actually maintain your position and range of motion. You do not need to count out a 5-second negative on every single rep. 2, maybe 3 seconds controlled is plenty for most people. Now, I don't want this to come across as eccentric training is bad. It's genuinely useful, just not for the reason everyone thinks. Situation 1. Learning a hard body weight movement. Negative pull-ups, assisted push-up lowering, single leg calf lowers, Nordic hamstring lowers. All great tools. Situation 2. Overloading just the lowering phase. Using 2 limbs to lift and 1 to lower. 1 leg's up, 1 leg down on a calf raise. 2 hand up, 1 hand down on a curl. Situation 3. Sport and everyday movement. Eccentric strength is what lets your body decelerate, absorbs force, land safely, change direction, walk downhill without your knees hating you, and lower things down instead of just dropping them. Eccentric focus training is a genuinely useful tool. That's different from saying every rep you ever do should become eccentric only. So, which one's actually better? Honestly, for overall muscle growth, neither one completely dominates. Eccentric contractions lets you handle more force, and they bring some real strength and training benefits with them. But concentric contractions are still stimulating growth just fine, and they're training the part that actually matters day to day, your ability to lift the weight in the first place. And for most people, the best rep just includes both. Lift it with purpose, lower it with control. And if you have a specific reason to focus on eccentric learning, such as learning a movement, overloading a weak point, whatever, go ahead and do that too. And in the meantime, when you're training, are you actually controlling that lowering phase on purpose? Or is it just kind of happening? Let me know down below in the comments. And again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.